where we were just being loaded with so much valuable information. So usually we have questions on our Facebook and questions in the chat box here on Zoom. But today, everyone was just following and just going along with what you were saying, as you were giving some very important nuggets that are important to us as young people. However, I just have a few questions here. There are really points of clarification, really, but that were posted in the chat box. So I'm hoping you can briefly answer them, probably referring back to some of the things that you were saying. Mparo Blessing was asking, how can we differentiate between the love of the world and the love of God? Is God not the one that gave us dominion over the world? So how can we separate the love of God and of the world?
Okay, so if she would just give me clarity at which point, because so when John speaks of the love of the world, a believer has three principal enemies that they
Sorry, Pastor,
they
you are muted.
Oh.
No, we can hear you.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, you're loud and clear. We can hear you.
Okay. So when we were talking, I assume that we're going back to the beginning where we talked about do not love the world. The world is a system. So I was saying that, you know, the believer has three enemies. The first enemy, which is really about subjugation, when we talk about controlling our appetites, is the flesh, because that is an inward principle that is that has an appetite towards things against God, and so that's what Galatians speaks of. That the lust of the flesh, you know, that there's a contention between our fleshly appetite. So disciplines like fasting and prayer, reading of scripture, attending in fellowship with other believers, those contend with and help keep the flesh in check. And the second enemy of the believer is what is called the world. Now, the world is a system that it's the way that when we spoke of architecture, for instance, it's the way in which the systems of the world are organized to rebel against God. When you take Genesis chapter 11, where they built the Tower of Babel, the building of the tower itself wasn't a problem. The problem was that they wanted to usurp God. That was the mind of Lucifer. The mind of Lucifer seeks to promote and elevate the individual above God. And so the lust of the love of the world is that which is opposed. James speaks of it as to love the world is to be an enemy of God. So, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Our narrative, when we are speaking of culture creating, is not to go out and bash the world, but to redeem the world, because there is much good that the devil has perverted and made opposed to God. And so, so our desire is to be clear that we are not going to measure success by the kind of car you drive or where you live or how much money is in your bank account. We are going to measure success by the significance, your pursuit of God's assignment for your life. And so we know that vehicles and houses and money are tools that God gives for edification. And that's what we want to see. What difference have you made for the improvement of the human family? I hope I've answered the question.